You use their products today? What you didn't know is that 5 of the world's biggest companies helped build the Nazi war machine and profited from it. You might have driven one of their cars, taken their medicine for a headache, or had one of their sodas with lunch. You probably have one of their products in your home right now. A brand so familiar it feels like part of your daily life. But behind the logos we trust lies a dark history they'd much rather you forget. A history forged in the fires of World War II, built on a foundation of collaboration, exploitation, and in some cases, outright atrocity. How would you feel if you knew you'd bought something from a company with deep ties to the Nazis? Well, you probably have, without even realizing it. Today, we're counting down 5 massive corporations that didn't just exist during Nazi Germany, but actively profited from it. Some of their histories are complicated, tangled with claims of coercion. Others are chillingly simple, born from greed and a willing partnership with a regime that committed some of history's worst crimes. So let's pull back the curtain and start with number 5. Kicking things off is a brand that is literally named for its origin, Volkswagen, the people's car. It's an automotive giant, parent to brands like Audi, Porsche, and Lamborghini. You see the iconic VW Beetle and the reliable Jetta on streets everywhere. The name was a promise, a quality car for the masses, a symbol of German engineering. But the vision for this people's car came directly from Adolf Hitler. In the early 1930s, cars in Germany were a luxury few could afford. Hitler, obsessed with technology, imagined a future where every German family owned a car to cruise down his new Autobahn highway system. This became a key piece of Nazi propaganda under the Kraft durch Freude, or Strength Through Joy program. In 1937, the Nazi German Labor Front founded Volkswagen. The project was Hitler's baby. He even unveiled the prototypes himself at a grand ceremony in 1938, christening the car the KDF Wagen. He was reportedly delighted by the Beetle's famous design and was one of the first to take it for a spin. But the promise of a family car was a lie. When World War II broke out in 1939, the Volkswagen factory, built with the savings of ordinary citizens, was immediately converted for military production. Instead of Beetles, the plant churned out thousands of military vehicles, like the Kubelwagen for the Wehrmacht. The factory meant to build the people's car became an essential cog in the Nazi war machine, producing over 66,000 military vehicles. To meet these demands, Volkswagen turned to a horrific source of labor. The company began using forced laborers, starting with Polish women and soon Soviet prisoners of war. By 1944, 2/3 of the factory's workforce was forced labor. In total, around 20,000 people were forced to work for Volkswagen, including about 5,000 prisoners from concentration camps. The conditions were inhuman. The company actively sought this labor. At one point, a VW engineer traveled to Auschwitz to personally select 300 skilled metalworkers from transports of Hungarian Jews. The Volkswagen plant itself eventually housed multiple concentration camps and forced labor camps on its property. Workers faced violence, starvation, and racial discrimination. In a particularly grim chapter, babies born to female forced laborers were taken and placed in a so-called children's home on the factory grounds, where hundreds died from neglect and disease. When American troops liberated the factory in 1945, they found the enslaved workforce and immediately halted arms production. After the war, Volkswagen was revived and grew into the global powerhouse it is today. In 1998, the company finally admitted to using 15,000 slaves during the war and set up a restitution fund. It's a chilling reminder that the people's car wasn't born from a dream of mobility, but from a dictator's vision, and built by the hands of those he wanted to destroy. At number 4 is an American icon, a company that practically invented the modern factory, Ford Motor Company. Henry Ford put America on wheels. But while Ford was building the arsenal of democracy in the US, its German subsidiary, Ford Werk, was operating as an arsenal of Nazism. Henry Ford himself was a notorious anti-Semite. His newspaper published viciously anti-Jewish articles, and his book, The International Jew, was a hit with the Nazis. Adolf Hitler even praised Ford in Mein Kampf, calling him the single great man in America. On Henry Ford's 75th birthday in 1938, the Nazi regime awarded him the Grand Cross of the German Eagle, the highest honor a foreigner could receive. Ford's German branch was deeply embedded in the Nazi war effort. With approval from its Michigan headquarters, Ford Werk began producing military vehicles for Germany before the war even started. Once war broke out, it became a massive supplier to the Wehrmacht. In fact, roughly one-third of the German army's 350,000 trucks in 1942 were Ford-made. One U.S. Army report noted it was an unpleasant sight for American soldiers to see so many Ford trucks supplying the enemy. The collaboration didn't stop there. In 1939, German Ford gave Adolf Hitler a personal birthday gift of 35,000 Reichsmarks. The American parent company also allegedly took part in a complex barter deal that helped the Nazis get their hands on strategic raw materials like rubber. And just like Volkswagen, Ford Werk's production lines ran on suffering. The company used French prisoners of war as forced laborers, a direct violation of the Geneva Convention. As the war intensified, so did the use of forced labor. When the U.S. Army liberated Ford's plants in Cologne and Berlin, they found destitute foreign workers confined behind barbed wire. Ford has long argued it lost control of its German subsidiary, but historical documents suggest the company made a conscious choice to keep doing business with the Nazis. Ford's sales in Germany grew by over 50% between 1938 and 1943. The argument was often one of pragmatism, business as usual. But this pursuit of profit, even in the face of unspeakable horrors, reveals a company that was helping the Allies at home while simultaneously fueling the engine of their enemy abroad. Our third entry isn't about heavy industry, but about something much simpler: refreshment. Did you know that one of the world's most popular sodas was created in Nazi Germany? That's right, we're talking about Fanta, a product of the Coca-Cola company. While this isn't a story of slave labor, it's a wild tale of corporate opportunism in the heart of the Third Reich. When Hitler came to power, Coke was already a big deal in Germany. The local subsidiary was run by a savvy German businessman named Max Keith. Keith went all in, associating the all-American drink with German life and even the regime. Coke ads ran on the back of magazines featuring Hitler on the cover. The company sponsored the 1936 Berlin Olympics, the Nazi Olympics, with banners that placed the Coca-Cola logo right next to the swastika. Sales exploded, and rumor has it that top Nazi officials, including Hermann Goering and maybe even Hitler himself, were fans. This cozy relationship blew up when the U.S. entered the war. A trade embargo cut off the supply of the secret syrup needed to make Coca-Cola. Facing a total shutdown, Max Keith needed a new drink he could make with only local ingredients. What he created was a far cry from the orange soda we know today. The original Fanta was made from what Keith himself called the leftovers of leftovers: whey, the watery gunk from cheese making, and apple pomace, the fibrous scraps from cider presses. It was likely a cloudy, brownish liquid. To name it, Keith told his team to use their fantasy, German for imagination. A salesman, Joe Nip, immediately shot back, "Fanta!" The name stuck. Fanta was a smash hit in wartime Germany. By 1943, 3 million cases were sold. With sugar heavily rationed, many families didn't even drink it. They used it to sweeten soups and stews. Keith not only kept the business alive, but followed German troops into conquered nations to take over their Coke operations. After the war, Coca-Cola investigated Keith, concluded he had acted in the company's best interest, and let him keep his job. The parent company took control of the German plant, the Fanta trademark, and all the profits made during the war. The orange-flavored Fanta we know was developed in Italy in 1955. In a horribly tone-deaf move, Coca-Cola released a 75th anniversary Fanta in Germany in 2015, with an ad campaign about bringing back the good old times. The ad was quickly pulled after a public outcry. Fanta's story shows how a brand can adapt and thrive under any political system, and how the cheerful packaging of an everyday product can hide a truly bizarre origin. At number 2, we shift from sodas to technology. IBM is a titan of the tech world, a pioneer that laid the groundwork for our digital lives. But decades before the personal computer, IBM's technology was used for a much darker purpose. helping the Nazis orchestrate the Holocaust with terrifying efficiency. IBM's involvement was through its German subsidiary, the HOMAG. The key technology was the Hollerith machine, an early computer that used punch cards to sort and tabulate massive amounts of data. For the Nazis, who were obsessed with data, this was a godsend. They didn't just want to persecute their enemies. They wanted to identify, track, and catalog them. Starting with a national census in 1933, the Nazis used Hollerith machines to create a racial census. With IBM's technology, the regime could record not just a person's religion, but Njihof's entire family tree. This data was punched into cards, creating a searchable database of Germany's population, meticulously identifying Jews, Roma, and anyone else the regime targeted. This technology was essential for organizing the Holocaust. IBM's machines allowed the Nazis to quickly identify Jewish populations, not just in Germany, but in every country they conquered. The punch card databases were used to create deportation lists, streamlining the logistics of mass murder. IBM's headquarters in New York, under CEO Thomas Watson, knew how its technology was being used and profited handsomely. IBM leased the machines to the Nazi government, and its employees serviced them monthly, even in or near concentration camps. Card sorting operations were set up in every major camp, cataloging prisoners and tracking everything from forced labor assignments to train schedules to the death camps. It was the automation of human destruction. The alliance was so strong that in 1937, Thomas Watson traveled to Berlin to accept a medal created by Hitler for foreigners who had rendered service to the Reich. After the war, IBM quietly reabsorbed its German subsidiary. The company's full role wasn't widely known until Edwin Black's 2001 book, IBM and the Holocaust. While IBM has said it finds the Nazi regime abhorrent, its history is a chilling lesson in how technology, without a moral compass, can become a weapon of genocide. The #1 spot goes to a company you might not know by name, but whose legacy is almost certainly in your home. We're talking about IG Farben. Today, IG Farben is gone, but its direct successor companies are household names: Bayer, maker of aspirin; BASF, a chemical giant; and Hoechst, which through a series of mergers became part of the pharmaceutical corporation Sanofi. The story of IG Farben is the most direct and horrifying example of corporate partnership with the Nazi regime, a partnership in slavery, plunder, and mass murder. IG Farben was a German chemical and pharmaceutical conglomerate formed in 1925 from a merger of companies including Bayer and BASF. By the time Hitler rose to power, it was the largest company in Europe. The Nazis needed IG Farben to produce synthetic rubber and fuel for their war machine. And IG Farben needed Hitler's government contracts. This mutual need became a full-blown alliance. IG Farben became a key pillar of the German war economy and a major donor to the Nazi Party. But their collaboration went much, much further. In 1941, IG Farben built a massive synthetic rubber and fuel plant right next to the Auschwitz concentration camp. The workforce was made up of slave laborers from the camp, leased to the company by the SS. An estimated 35,000 prisoners were forced to work at the IG Farben plant. Conditions were so brutal that the average life expectancy for a worker was just 3 months. An estimated 23,000 of them died. But IG Farben's darkest secret is a product made by a company called Dagish, in which IG Farben held a 42.5% stake. That product was a cyanide-based pesticide called Zyklon B. Originally used to kill lice, Zyklon B became the poison gas used in the chambers of Auschwitz and other camps to murder over 1 million people, mostly Jews. IG Farben supplied the gas that enabled the industrial-scale slaughter of the Holocaust. After the war, several IG Farben executives were tried at Nuremberg. They claimed they knew nothing. The sentences they received were shockingly light, and most were released early. The Allies broke up the conglomerate, and its main components, Bayer, BASF, and Hoechst, were allowed to continue operating. These companies became the giants we know today, their origins largely forgotten. Every time you reach for a Bayer aspirin, you are touching the legacy of a company that was a direct partner in the Holocaust. From a people's car built by slaves to the punch cards that organized a genocide, the stories of these companies are a sobering look at the dark side of capitalism. What's most disturbing is how successfully they washed away the stains of their past. Most faced minimal consequences and went on to become bigger and more integrated into our lives than ever before. Their histories hidden in plain sight. This history forces us to ask some uncomfortable questions. What is a corporation's responsibility? Is profit a good enough reason to do business with regimes that commit atrocities? And for us as consumers, does knowing this change how we see these brands? These aren't easy questions, but it's vital that we don't let these stories be forgotten. The logos and products we use every day are more than just symbols of commerce. They're artifacts of history, and sometimes that history is one we need to confront. What do you think? Does this history change your view of these companies? Let us know in the comments. And if you found this video informative, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more deep dives into the hidden histories of our world. Thanks for watching.